Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here with us today. Our goal for this session is highly specific, but honestly, it's a real game changer. We're diving into the source material to discover exactly why the tech world's absolute obsession with premature microservices might actually be a trap. And on the flip side, why the modular monolith is a massively powerful starting point. In the tech industry, there is just this immense pressure to adopt the most complex, distributed systems right from day one. But as we're going to explore together today, starting simple might just be your ultimate competitive advantage. Okay, let's dive right into this incredibly powerful quote from the sources to kick things off. The wrong choice doesn't just create technical debt, it creates strategic debt. When you're mapping out your end-to-end digital product development, the architecture choices you make on day one, they literally dictate your outcomes down the road. Think about it. If you choose an architecture that is way too complex too early, you aren't just writing messy code. You're actually slowing down your entire business roadmap. You are creating debt that physically prevents your company from maneuvering strategically when it matters most. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover architecture as business strategy, modular monoliths versus microservices, a head-to-head comparison, assessing organizational readiness, an architecture framework, and finally, the three-phase evolution. We've got a lot of great ground to cover, so let's get right to it. Section 1. Architecture as business strategy. We really need to frame this entire conversation around one massive idea. Your architecture isn't just a technical preference, it's a core business strategy. It isn't just something for your developers to debate over coffee, it directly impacts the bottom line. As you can see, these four specific business pillars are directly shaped by the architecture you choose to start with. If your system is too complex, well, your release velocity simply plummets. Your team structure gets bloated because you need all these specialists just to keep the lights on. Your infrastructure costs will skyrocket early in the startup lifecycle when, let's face it, capital is precious. And most importantly, your speed of responding to market feedback drags to a total crawl. And feedback is the absolute lifeblood of any new digital product. Basically, the technical foundation you lay dictates your business agility. Moving right along to Section 2, Modular Monoliths v. Microservices. First up, the modular monolith. I want you to think of this like a single house, but a house with very, very well-defined rooms. It's a single deployable application, but internally it's strictly divided into loosely coupled modules. Each module completely owns its own domain logic, its own data access, and its interfaces. You still have a single code base, a single deployment unit, and drastically lower infrastructure overhead compared to distributed systems. Really, the best way to describe this approach is that it gives you microservices discipline, but without all that microservices complexity. Next, we have microservices. Now, this approach splits your application up into independently deployable services. Each service handles just a single business capability, and they talk to each other over APIs or message queues. And this brilliantly illustrates the core trade-off we're talking about today. While microservices solve very real problems, like allowing for independent scaling and letting you use totally different coding languages for different services, they require incredibly high DevOps maturity. You need service discovery, distributed tracing, API gateways, maturity that, quite frankly, most early-stage startups just simply do not have. All right, Section 3, the head-to-head comparison. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this critical differentiator right here, your current engineering headcount. The source data points out that a modular monolith is best for teams ranging from roughly 2 to 20 engineers. Microservices, on the other hand, generally only begin to make sense when you cross that threshold of 15 or more engineers. If you have a lean team, dividing them up to manage distributed network complexity is just going to drain your resources fast. Team size is a glaringly honest metric for whether you are architecturally ready. Let's actually walk through these crucial trade-offs. Look at time to deploy here. It's days for a modular monolith versus weeks for microservices. Infrastructure cost is low early on for monoliths, but very high for microservices. Developer onboarding? Simple versus complex. Now, sure, microservices do give you independent scaling, but the cost for that is massive. In fact, our sources note that setting up the infrastructure, the inter-service communication, and the distributed testing for microservices can add an astonishing 30 to 50% overhead to your early development cycles. If your launch is time-sensitive, and whose isn't, that is a massive penalty to pay. Section 4. Assessing organizational readiness. Let's pivot away from the pure technology for a second and honestly ask, is your organization actually ready for distributed complexity? Question 1. Do we have more than 3 independent product teams? If the answer is no, then the coordination overhead of running microservices is going to severely hurt your velocity rather than help it. You're going to spend way more time managing communication between your few developers than actually building the features your customers want.
Okay, question 2. Can our DevOps team manage Kubernetes, distributed tracing, and service meshes today? I really want to warn you about this one. Answering no here has profound consequences. It means you will end up spending your vital, highly expensive engineering cycles managing complex infrastructure instead of building your actual product. Your incredibly well-paid developers will effectively just become a makeshift operations team.
And question 3, are we still discovering our core domain model? Listen closely to this one because it's absolutely crucial. If you're still figuring out what your product actually is and how its data relates, drawing microservice boundaries too early means you will draw the wrong boundaries, period. And migrating across badly drawn network boundaries later on, that is an extremely expensive, painful process.
Section 5. Step-by-step architecture framework.
So the crucial point is, if microservices aren't the starting point, what exactly should you do? Well, here is our actionable playbook. First, map your team structure. Your architecture should always follow your team's topology. Second, define your actual scaling bottlenecks for the next 12 months. If you can't name them right now, you definitely don't need microservices yet. Third, start modular. Build clean internal boundaries. Fourth, establish domain boundaries using domain-driven design. And finally, fifth, set specific migration triggers, like, say, hitting 20 engineers, to signal when it's actually time to extract a service. Starting modular with clean internal boundaries lets you extract those services later without needing a full disastrous rewrite. And finally, Section 6, the 3-phase evolution. Let's go ahead and lower the stakes of that big day one decision by mapping out exactly how a modular monolith naturally evolves. Here is a highly effective timeline from the sources. For the first 0 to 18 months, just stick to the modular monolith with strict domain separation. Then, from 18 to 36 months, you move to selective service extraction. This means pulling out services based on actual, real scaling data, not just guesses. And by 36 months and beyond, you land on a hybrid architecture. Your high-load domains operate as independent services, while your stable domains remain consolidated. This approach reduces time to market and brilliantly preserves your flexibility until you have hard, undeniable proof of product-market fit.
$10 million. Okay, I want to share a really surprising fact from the source data to put things into perspective. Most software-as-a-service products under $10 million in annual recurring revenue are actually better served by a well-structured modular monolith. Things like multi-tenancy, user authentication, and billing, those can usually be perfectly managed as internal modules. You just don't need complex distributed microservices simply to handle standard early-stage SaaS workloads. It's that simple. Let's wrap up with this really powerful final thought. Architecture is not a destination, it's a decision you revisit as your product matures. Start simple, stay modular, and scale intentionally. Please, whatever you do, don't bet your entire product on a highly complex distributed system before you've even confirmed what your customers actually want. So I'll leave you with this provocative question to ponder as you plan your next big build. Are you choosing an architecture based on the real problems your product is facing today, or are you adopting complexities simply because a trillion-dollar tech giant is doing it? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me, and I really encourage you to use this framework to make confident, data-driven decisions for your product going forward.